Hey everybody, this is Steve, and your thoughts are not your own. Back in episode 103, we talked about how emptying your head can help jumpstart your spiritual life, and said we'd cover how exactly we should deal with our thoughts in a later episode. Well, if you've ever tried to be silent and still, you know how challenging it can be to deal with your thoughts. The word thoughts, or logismi in Greek, refers to the distracting and misleading ideas that can pop into our heads. They're the imaginings and fantasies that can pull us away from God and further into sin and death. Evagrius of Pontus, a 4th century monk, referred to prayer as the laying aside of thoughts. Not a fierce combat necessarily, but a gentle laying aside of the things that guide us away from God so we can instead draw closer to Him. If you've ever tried to be silent, then you know that just sitting there, even in a perfectly quiet room, our heads can be full of memories of the past or ideas of the future. We may even be startled by the random, surprising, perhaps even scary thoughts that can flash through our minds. Yet the thoughts running through our heads aren't only challenging when we're trying to do our prayer rule. They can be a challenge all day, every day. When we meet particular people, we might have angry or judgmental thoughts. When we see particular things on TV or online, we may have lustful thoughts. When we see particular foods or drinks, we may have gluttonous thoughts. And those thoughts can very quickly turn into actions that lead us further from God and deeper into sin and death. So what do we do about these thoughts? Way back in episode 8, we talked about what St. Porphyrios called the easy way to defeat darkness. Not by struggling against the darkness, but by welcoming the light of Christ. This advice has been repeated by great saints throughout the history of the Church. Saints Barsanuphius and John, for instance, great ascetics from the 4th and 5th centuries, offered this incredible advice. Do not contradict the thoughts suggested by your enemies, for that is exactly what they want, and they will not cease from troubling you. But turn to the Lord for help against them, laying before Him your own powerlessness, for He is able to expel them and to reduce them to nothing. This advice is especially important because it identifies a key truth, that our thoughts are not our own. The imaginings and fantasies in our heads may be random thoughts that fire in our brains, or, to be blunt, they may be placed there by the demons in an attempt to make us stumble. Either way, it's important to distance ourselves from those thoughts rather than identify with them. If you have an angry thought, don't say, "I am angry." Or if you have a lazy thought, don't say, "I am lazy." Remind yourself that you, a child of God, made in His image and likeness, is simply having a thought that's angry or lazy or whatever it may be. It's not you. It's a thing that's happening to you. As St. Paisios the Athonite once said, thoughts are like airplanes. They can buzz around all they want, but they can't touch us as long as we don't build them a runway. So recognize that angry thought with honesty and humility, but don't start dwelling on it, focusing on the things that have made you angry or all the ways you'd love to get revenge. Don't build that thought a runway and let it enter your heart. And don't try to fight it head on either. Instead, pray for the person that inspired that angry thought. Reach out to God for patience and compassion and love. Because you are not angry. You are not prideful. You are not jealous or judgmental or lazy or lustful. You are a child of God who is often tempted, just like everyone else. You are a child of God who is free to keep those negative thoughts at arm's length, to recognize them and replace their darkness with the light of Christ. Do you see the difference? Having an angry thought doesn't mean you're inevitably going to fall into anger. Having a prideful thought doesn't mean you're inevitably going to fall into pride. Those thoughts, placed in our minds by the forces of evil, don't need to find their way into our hearts, because you are a child of God, and you can choose what to do with those thoughts. So let's be the bee. And remember that our negative thoughts are not our own. Be the bee and live orthodoxy. Remember to like and subscribe and share. I'll see you all next week. Thanks to our supporters on Patreon who helped make this episode possible. To support the creation of more Orthodox Christian content, please visit patreon.com/y2am. And be sure to tune in every Thursday for new episodes of Be the Bee, and every Monday for new episodes of The Trench.